My mother-in-law planted prohibited substances to frame me for an organized scheme, but she accidentally sent her own son to face a huge sentence instead. Now the radicals she conspired with are hunting me, and I have to decide if I'll save the man who betrayed me. 5 years. That's how long it took for Elena to finally dismantle the life I had built with Mark. People always tell you to watch out for the mother-in-law, but you never think it'll be your story. You think your love is different, that your husband's spine is made of something stronger than wet cardboard. I was wrong. Elena didn't use a sledgehammer, she used a needle. A prick here, a whisper there. It started small. A comment about how my cooking wasn't quite up to family standards, or a sigh when she saw how I'd redecorated the living room. Then it grew. She began questioning my loyalty, my background, and eventually my sanity. She was a master of the concerned tone, the kind that makes you look like the villain for even getting upset. Mark was her only son, her golden boy. In her eyes, no woman was ever going to be good enough, especially not a girl like me who worked her way up from nothing. To Elena, I was a social climber, a parasite. She spent years trying to find my breaking point, and last week she finally found it. It happened on a cold Tuesday afternoon. I came home to find Elena sitting at our dining table, her face a mask of calculated tragedy. Mark was standing by the window, his back to me, his shoulders so tense they looked like they might snap. On the table was a thick manila folder. "What's going on?" I asked, my heart already hammering against my ribs. Elena sighed, a sound full of theatrical pity. "Sarah, we know. I told Mark it was better to confront you directly than to let the Service for Internal Security handle it first." She pushed the folder toward me. Inside were bank statements, expertly forged, though I didn't know it then, and photos. Photos of me meeting with a man I didn't recognize in a park, exchanging a heavy envelope. The documents made it look like I was funneling money from Mark's family business into a private account, linked to a dangerous organized scheme. "This isn't real," I gasped, looking at Mark. "Mark, look at me. I don't even know who this man is. This is a setup." He finally turned around, and the look in his eyes chilled me to the bone. There was no love left, only a cold, hard disgust. "The internal checking process doesn't lie, Sarah. My mother found the trail. You were putting the whole company at risk. Do you have any idea what happens if the authorities find out we're linked to an organized scheme? We could face a huge sentence, dozens of years in prison." "Mark, she's lying. She's always hated me," I screamed, but it was like shouting at a stone wall. Elena stepped in, her voice like silk. Now, let's not make a scene. Mark has already made his decision. For the sake of the family, we aren't going to report you to the authorities. Yet. But you are going to sign these." She produced divorce papers. Mark had already signed them. "I'm moving out tonight," Mark said, his voice flat. "The lawyers will handle the rest. Don't try to contact me." He walked past me like I was a ghost. I heard the bedroom door slam, the sound of a suitcase being zipped, and then the front door clicking shut. Elena stayed behind for a moment, a predatory glint in her eyes. "I told you, dear. You were just a temporary distraction. Now, pack your things. This house is in my name." The next 48 hours were a blur of cold, numbing shock. I stayed at a cheap motel staring at the ceiling, trying to understand how my life had evaporated in 20 minutes. I tried calling Mark, but I was blocked. I tried calling his office, but they told me I wasn't allowed on the premises. I was alone, disgraced, and being framed for a crime I didn't commit. By the second day, the anger started to replace the sadness. I was going to fight back. I was sitting on the edge of the motel bed when my phone vibrated. It was Elena. My heart stopped. I swiped accept, ready to scream. "What do you want, Elena?" I snapped. There was silence on the other end. Then I heard a sound I never expected. She wasn't laughing. She was sobbing, a jagged, panicked sound. "Sarah?" She wheezed, her voice trembling with genuine terror. "Sarah, you have to help me. He's gone. They've taken him, and it's all my fault. They found the prohibited substances in his car, Sarah. The packages I planted to frame you, the police found them on him instead." The air in the motel room felt like it had been sucked out of a vacuum. I stared at the phone, my knuckles white as I gripped the plastic casing. Elena, the woman who had spent 5 years trying to poison my life, was now howling like a wounded animal. I felt a sick sense of satisfaction for a split second, but it was quickly replaced by a cold, numbing dread. "What are you talking about, Elena?" I whispered, my voice trembling. "What did you do?" "The packages, the small bags of prohibited substances," she choked out between gasps. "I bought them. I paid a man from a group I found online, an organized scheme. I was supposed to hide them in the spare tire well of your car. I was going to call in an anonymous tip after you moved out. But Mark, he didn't take his car this morning. He took yours. He said the engine light was on in his SUV and he wanted to take yours to the office to drop it off at the mechanic." I sat down hard on the edge of the bed. My car. The car I hadn't been allowed to take because Elena claimed it was technically family property. "They pulled him over for a broken taillight," Elena continued, her voice rising to a frantic pitch. "The police searched the vehicle. They found everything, Sarah. They found the packages with the substances. They're calling it a possession with intent to distribute. They think he's part of a larger organized scheme. They've arrested him, Sarah. He's facing a huge sentence, dozens of years. They won't let me see him. They think I'm involved because the car is registered in my name." The irony was so thick it was suffocating. She had built a cage for me, but she had accidentally locked her golden boy inside it. "Why are you calling me?" I asked, my voice turning ice cold. "You framed me. You told him I was a criminal. You made him sign those papers. You got exactly what you wanted. I'm gone. Because you're the only one who can save him," she shrieked. "If you go to the police, if you tell them the car was yours, that you were the one using it, they might let him go. I'll pay you. I'll give you anything. Just tell them the substances were yours. You have no record, Sarah. They'll be more lenient on you. But Mark, his family name, the business, it'll all be destroyed." I couldn't believe my ears. Even now, in the middle of a disaster she had created, her only thought was to sacrifice me to save her son's reputation. She wanted me to take a fall for a crime she committed, to protect the man who had abandoned me without a second thought. "You want me to go to prison for you?" I asked, a bitter laugh bubbling up in my throat. "After you spent years making me feel like garbage? After you forged documents to make it look like I was stealing from your company? No, Elena. You go to the police. You tell them you bought those prohibited substances. You tell them you tried to destroy my life." "I can't," she sobbed. "If I admit to it, they'll investigate everything. They'll find the people I bought it from. These people, they're dangerous radicals. They'll come after me. Sarah, please, I'm begging you. Mark loves you. He was just confused. He was manipulated by me." "He wasn't manipulated, Elena. He chose to believe you," I said, and then I hung up. I spent the next hour pacing the small room. My mind was a whirlwind of rage and conflict. Part of me wanted to let them both burn. Mark had looked at me with such pure hatred just 2 days ago. He didn't deserve my help. But then I thought about the organized scheme Elena had mentioned. If those people were as dangerous as she said, and if Mark was caught in the middle of a police investigation involving their merchandise, he was in way over his head. I decided to go to the police station, not to confess, but to see the situation for myself. I needed to know if Mark was okay. When I arrived, the atmosphere was heavy. I saw Mark's lawyer, a shark of a man named Mr. Sterling, pacing the hallway. He looked pale. When he saw me, he rushed over. "Sarah? Thank God, we need to talk. This is much worse than possession," he whispered, pulling me into a quiet corner. "The internal checking that Elena started. It triggered a wider investigation by the Service for Internal Security. They weren't just looking at you. They've been monitoring the family business for months. Those forged documents Elena used to frame you, they weren't just amateur fakes. They accidentally mirrored a real organized scheme that's been operating under the company's nose." I felt the floor tilt. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying the police don't think Mark is just a victim of a bad mother's prank," Sterling said, his voice dropping to a barely audible breath. "They think he's the lead coordinator, and Sarah, they found something else in the car, something Elena didn't mention. They found a blueprint of a government facility and a list of names. They aren't just charging him with substances anymore. They're preparing a heavy accusation for an attempt to break lives with a criminal plot." My phone buzzed in my pocket. It was a text from an unknown number. I opened it, expecting more pleas from Elena. Instead, it was a photo of me, right now, standing in the police station hallway taken from across the street. Beneath it were the words, "Tell the woman to stop talking or the boy won't be the only one who doesn't come home tonight. We want our property back." I didn't look up. I knew that if I scanned the street for the person who sent that message, I'd be signaling that I was vulnerable. My hands were shaking, but my mind had never been clearer. The radicals Elena had contacted weren't just low-level dealers. They were part of a sophisticated, organized scheme, and she had inadvertently stolen a high-value shipment meant for someone else. By putting those packages in my car, she hadn't just framed me, she had turned our family into a target for people who don't negotiate. I showed the text to Mr. Sterling. His eyes widened, and he immediately signaled for 2 plainclothes officers standing near the desk. "We need to move her to a secure room," he whispered. Within minutes, I was in a small, windowless office with 2 investigators from the Service for Internal Security. I told them everything. I told them about the 5 years of psychological warfare Elena had waged. I told them about the forged bank documents and the folder she used to break my marriage. But most importantly, I told them about her phone call. I told them she had admitted to planting the prohibited substances. "We need that confession on record, Sarah," the lead investigator said, "and we need to neutralize the group watching you. If they want their property back, we're going to give it to them, but not the way they expect." I agreed to help. They fitted me with a discreet listening device and told me to call Elena back. I met her at a quiet park bench a few blocks away, while a tactical team moved into position, invisible in the late afternoon shadows. Elena looked like a ghost of herself. Her expensive coat was stained and her hair was a mess. "Did you do it?" she hissed as I sat down. "Did you tell them the substances were yours?" "I told them the truth, Elena," I said, my voice steady. "I told them you bought those packages from radicals. I told them you were trying to destroy me. Why did you do it? Was hating me really worth risking Mark's life?" she snapped. The mask of the refined matriarch finally shattered. "You were a virus," she shrieked, her voice echoing off the trees. "I spent 30 years building that company and my son's reputation. I wasn't going to let a girl from the gutters inherit it all. Yes, I bought the substances. I hired those criminals to provide the evidence because you were too perfect, too careful. I had to create a trail. I didn't know they were using me to move their materials. I just wanted you gone." "And the blueprint in the car?" I asked. "They told me it was just a map to a drop-off point," she wailed. "I didn't look at it. I didn't care. I just wanted it in your car so the internal checking process would find it and the Service for Internal Security would take you away for dozens of years." That was all they needed. The investigators moved in, surrounding the bench before she could even stand up. As they handcuffed her, the tactical team also closed in on a black SUV parked across the street, the source of the threatening text. They caught the radicals red-handed with illegal weapons and more prohibited substances. The aftermath was swift. With Elena's recorded confession and the arrest of the actual criminals, the heavy accusations against Mark were dropped. He had been a pawn in his mother's game, though a willing one. Elena, however, wasn't so lucky. She was charged with conspiracy, evidence tampering, and providing material support to an organized scheme. She is currently facing a huge sentence, one she will likely spend in a high-security facility. Mark was released 2 days later. He came to my motel room looking broken. He tried to kneel, tried to take my hand, tried to tell me that he was under a spell and that we could rebuild everything. I looked at him, the man I had loved for 5 years, and realized I felt nothing. Not anger, not pity, just a profound sense of relief that he was no longer my problem. He hadn't stood by me when the world turned dark. He had chosen his mother's lies over my truth. "The divorce papers are already signed, Mark," I said, leaning against the doorframe. "You should go. You have a company to save and a mother to visit in prison. I have a life to start." I shut the door on him, and for the first time in years, I breathed in the sweet, clear air of total freedom. Elena tried to break us, and she succeeded. But in doing so, she accidentally set me free.